just make the way. Butler in. Easy layup.
Henderson gives it up to Cheney.
Hoosiers hoops, to me, is a dream. You start out with very young.
Mr. Basketball of Indiana.
What a great play by Steve Alford.
That dream can carry on to get to the college level and win an NCAA championship.
Here's Alford breaking free. And a foot race with Monroe.
Looking up there and seeing those banners up there, not knowing that one day 1987 would be placed up there.
Smart takes the shot, and the Hoosiers with 3 seconds. Indiana wins the championship. Keith Smart is the hero.
Once I got to Indiana, I always felt at home.
Indiana fans and how they love Isaiah. Into the promised land.
It's simply the satisfaction from seeing these players involved in something that they'll remember for the rest of their lives.
That's what Indiana University basketball is all about. The tradition. It's the epitome of what basketball is all about.
Hoosiers Hoops, Indiana and the NCAA Basketball Championships.
My town of Bern, Indiana, there's 2 things mighty important. 1, religion, and 2, basketball.
You drive out in the country, these little farms, and there's an IU flag. And then there's an old goal on the barn where some kid has played since he was little. Those are the things that make Indiana basketball.
Throughout 5.5 decades of NCAA tournament excellence, Indiana University has distinguished itself time and again. 5 national championships, 7 trips to the Final Four, and a lengthy list of outstanding players, many of whom dreamed at a young age that they too would one day play for the Hoosiers and step onto center court with visions of winning an NCAA championship.
This is Hoosiers. This is the movie coming to life. Bailey, 3-pointer. Good move. Graham slicing Bailey. Cheney, 3-point shot. Henderson helped out and got the steal. 3-on-1 Indiana.
The Indiana teams of the 1990s have in many ways enhanced the Hoosiers' reputation. These days, an NCAA basketball championship is incomplete without Indiana. And the players of the 90s owe it all to the Hoosiers' grand basketball tradition.
The real beginning for basketball at Indiana University was with Everett Dean as Indiana's first All-American player back in 1921. And then Everett came back at a very early age in 1924 to coach for the next 14 seasons.
The only reason Dean's successful teams never went to an NCAA tournament was because it didn't yet exist. And when he left in 1938, Branch McCracken took over as the Hoosiers coach and not only led IU to a 17-3 record his first year, but also revolutionized the way the game was played.
Branch was the fire wagon game, and he says when you get the ball off the board, turn your tail and run. And if you didn't run fast, he was complaining. Fire wagon, fast break. You could wear down a point and you could break the game open in the first half, and it's happened many times with the Branch McCracken team.
Under McCracken, the fast-breaking Hoosiers proved to be a tough team to beat. And in 1940, they even took on and defeated UCLA and a player soon to be famous in another sport, Jackie Robinson. Although the Hoosiers finished behind Purdue in the Big Ten that year, they were invited to the second ever NCAA championships, where they played Kansas in the finals. Early on, Indiana struggled, until Marv Huffman led IU to a 13-point halftime lead.
Well, he did something that I never saw him do. Just prior to halftime, you know how you let it fly back the center line? He let one go and it went in. And I thought, boy, we're really hot tonight. When he dropped that one in, all of us stopped right there and laughed because we had not seen any of that type of shot go into the basket.
Wrote the Kansas City Star, Indiana finished in a whirlwind, amazing the crowd while moving at unbelievable speed.
It was exciting, but really it was the second half was no ball game. So you could imagine how excited we were. We knew darn well we were going to win it because Kansas couldn't hang in there with us.
Indiana had its first ever NCAA championship, and the players a place in Hoosier history.
People in the state of Indiana still remember Bob Drove, Bill Mankey, Jay McCrary, Marv Huffman, Schaefer and Armstrong. Well, now, how many people in this world are remembered that long, particularly in their own state? I think that I'm the luckiest man on earth.
Branch's 1940 team won the NCAA, which was the second NCAA tournament to be played. And so that, I think, was the beginning of Indiana's move into national prominence.
Hurrying Hoosiers.
A lot of opportunities to score points.
Fast break basketball.
Try to create the turnovers, get the easy baskets.
We were on the move 40 minutes.
Winning.
In 1953, Bob Leonard and the #1 ranked Hurrying Hoosiers won enough games to make it to the NCAA Finals. In a rematch of the lopsided 1940 game, Indiana again took on Kansas, but this time it was an intense struggle between two equally matched teams.
It was a heated game. It was a very heated game. And it was nip and tuck all the way.
It was late in the game, and it had 4 fouls, and we were really right down to the wire. I was driving in the middle of the lane, and somebody hit me from the side, and then called me for a charge. And of course, that was my 5th foul. The game was getting late. I just lost my cool. I think I slammed the ball against the floor and went up about 25, 30 feet and got the big T, and then had to go back to that bench and watch McCracken scowl. You know, he wasn't too happy at that point.
Down by 2, Kansas plays.
Even 30 points from Don Schlunt couldn't put Kansas away. And with just under 30 seconds to play, the teams were even.
There's a tremendous amount of pressure at that age for a player and the NCAA championship on the line. I got a clean drive, but it rolled off, and I ended up getting 2 free throws.
Leonard at the line.
Dribble for dribble and pound for pound, the best college basketball player in the country.
All-American. He's got great touch.
We were never nervous with Leonard.
He's probably our best free throw shooter.
When you wanted to score a basket, get the ball to Bobby Leonard.
He's kind of like the Mississippi Gambler. He's the guy that's going to roll the dice.
Branch told him that I had ice water in my veins.
All on the line right here.
I said, well, if that was ice water, it sure felt awful warm when it was running down my leg, because I was scared to death. Gave us the lead with 27 seconds to play. Now, we've got a real chore, because we lost 3 ball games that year by 5 points in a total of 7 seconds. And the thing that was going through my mind is this going to happen to us again?
I'm telling you, we never played better defense than we did in those last 27 seconds. And I was guarding one of the Kelly boys, and I was on him like glue. I absolutely didn't let him do anything.
In those final 27 seconds, none of the Jayhawks did much of anything. Finally, with only 3 seconds to play, Jerry Alberts missed from the corner, and the Hoosiers were national champs for a second time. It would, however, be Branch McCracken's last championship before retiring in 1965. Still, he had established a winning tradition. Around the state, the greatest goal a boy could have was to run the fast break for the Hurrying Hoosiers of Branch McCracken.
When you put that Indiana uniform on, it's just like waving a red flag. The coach doesn't have to give his team much of a pep talk.
In every sense, McCracken was an innovator. He brought Bill Garrett to Indiana in 1948, breaking the color barrier, a move he was most proud of.
Coach McCracken was dedicated, hard-nosed. He was a winner through and through.
Great teacher, understood people well, and just like a big father to most of us.
He epitomized a Hoosier, what I would think would be a Hoosier. Big guy, just a great person, a fatherly type, but a tough son of a gun, I'll tell you.
They'd already won 2 national championships, one in the 40s and one in the 50s. The 60s, they had some really good players who had come here, but they never really seemed to put it all together as a team. And in fact, there was a real lull in the late 60s. Boy, when Bob and I got here, things really started to change.
For Indiana, the NCAA drought would end soon after Bobby Knight's arrival in 1971.
Got the move. Our regular pass is cut off.
In Knight's second season, Indiana found itself in its third Final Four, but the Hoosiers' task there wouldn't be easy. Their opponent, UCLA.
It's kind of scary. Here I am as a 7th, 8th grader, a freshman, and Johnny Wood and UCLA are winning national championships right and left, and I'm glued to my TV watching all this. Well, now I'm a sophomore, and I'm 19 years old, and there's Johnny Wood and Bill Walton, and I'm in the game. And that was really a leap for anybody here at Indiana.
To see that UCLA across the chest and have the opportunity to play against these guys, regardless of what you think, you feel, am I good enough to compete with these guys?
You're not contesting anybody over there. This is the worst defense we've played all year. You're letting them do anything they want to do.
Knight was right, and by the half, the Bruins had an 18-point lead.
Maybe the pressure and the mystique of the UCLA image was getting to us, and we were getting blown out on national TV. It was a scary feeling.
We let them get away from us earlier, and then we settled down and made a run at them.
In the second half, Steve Downing got Walton into foul trouble, and Indiana reeled off 17 straight points to get back into the game.
Then their experience or our lack of took over.
The Hoosiers didn't embarrass themselves, but they didn't win either.
I don't know if we were ready to win a national championship that early. I mean, Coach Knight was 29 years old, but it really set the stage for what Indiana basketball was going to become.
By 1975, Indiana had the best team in the country. Led by high-scoring Scott May, they were a typical Knight creation, disciplined and motivated. But late in the year, the Hoosiers' title dreams came crashing down.
Scott May broke his arm, and up until that point, we were rolling along, the #1 team in the nation, and yet we weren't the same team as we were with Scott. There's no question about it.
Indiana and a still injured May managed to get to the regional finals against Kentucky, where Knight made a bold move.
We started Scott May, and he really wasn't effective. After 2 or 3 minutes, Coach pulled him out.
They were well schooled in what it would take to stay with us throughout the game and never let us get on a run or a roll.
Despite 33 points and 23 rebounds from Hoosier center Kent Benson, Kentucky upset Indiana and kept the Hoosiers one step away from the Final Four.
It shocked me. We were in the locker room, and it was like, the season can't be over. It wasn't time for the season to be over.
The 75 team felt that we were, a good team and could win it all. 76 knew by the time we got there we should win it, and we were going to win it.
This time, there would be no stopping Indiana's Final Four run. The Hoosiers were on a mission to prove that Kentucky's upset in 1975 was just that. And in the early rounds of the 76 tournament, which included a win over #2 ranked Marquette, Indiana marched relentlessly to Philadelphia.
That was a goal of ours a year ago, and we weren't able to get to the finals this year. It was a goal, even maybe a stronger goal than we had a year ago.
That team's goal was to win the NCAA tournament.
But finally, all of the waiting and all of the work was over with.
That's a group of kids that obviously had a goal in mind and wanted in every way possible to achieve that goal.
We were able to know for sure that we were going to be able to go on to Philadelphia and have a crack at the national championship.
First up for the Hoosiers, UCLA, the defending national champs. Only now, the Bruin dynasty was beginning its decline, and the game was never close. IU avenged its 1973 Final Four defeat with a 65-51 win to get to the championship game.
Just one more performance, and we'd be champs. We'd go undefeated, and we'd have our own little niche in college basketball history.
Who
will take the crown home. It'll go to the Big Ten.
Now all that stood between Indiana and immortality was a third meeting of the year with conference rival Michigan.
We were pretty well determined, I believe, to win the national championship, and the opponent really didn't matter because we were going to play as hard and as well as we could play, and we were going to find a way to beat you.
On this night, there was little question that the Hoosiers were the better team. But Michigan started strong, and the situation would get even worse for Indiana when just 3 minutes into the game, Bobby Wilkerson was knocked cold in a collision.
Uh-oh, problem. There's an injured Hoosier, and that could be a very serious loss. It is Bobby Wilkerson who is down for the Hoosiers. He's dazed, and Bobby Knight may be looking down at a national championship.
He tried to get up and started to shake his head and then roll back down again. He just couldn't make it.
Bobby Wilkerson going down was traumatic.
He was laying there lifeless.
Well, what are we going to do now?
Now a stretcher is being brought out.
How are we going to play?
It'll be a big loss to Indiana.
Is he okay?
Right now the concern is Bobby himself on the court.
It seemed forever before they were able to get him off the court.
Bobby Wilkerson.
It's going to be unlikely that he'll play again tonight, Kurt.
But in the meantime, we've got to play.
That puts pressure on the team that is considered maybe the best in the world, Indiana.
Yes, we were concerned, but we knew at the moment we couldn't do anything for Bobby. The only thing we could control was what was happening in the game.
Indiana tried to ignore its bad fortune, and for a while it did. But as time went on, it was clear that Wilkerson's injury had clearly shaken the Hoosiers, and they fell behind after the first 20 minutes.
Of Indiana, which has won 31 games in a row this year.
We go in at halftime, and I'll never forget this incident. We go in, we're down 6 points. Coach never said a word. Quiet. Didn't X and O, didn't talk about certain things. He just said, hey, I don't care what I draw up on this board. If you guys want to have your spot in college history, if you want to go undefeated and you want to be champs, you got 20 minutes to prove it.
All that we had worked so hard for over the course of the season, that if we just go out there and play to our potential, the way we're capable of playing, execute our offense, play our style of defense, then we could win the ball game.
Scott May's jumper short, and it's over to Kent Benson underneath.
Early in the second half, Kent Benson and Scott May led Indiana's offense as the Hoosiers gradually turned the game in their favor. Playing near flawless basketball, Indiana would not be denied.
Inside it goes. It counts.
Don't walk out of this game saying I woulda, coulda, shoulda have done something. And in the second half, that's the way we came out. We just made sure we laid it on the line, enjoy yourself, play hard, experience it, and go work. And we did.
The 76 Hoosiers were a reflection of Knight's personality, dedicated and driven. And the second half of the championship game was evidence of that. They simply refused to lose, especially Quinn Buckner.
Buckner is as good a leader as I've seen in action in any sport. And I think that was evident in the way he went after things in the second half of that game.
When Quinn was on the court, it was like having Coach Knight on the court too, because he and Coach thought alike. Quinn was so in tune with what Coach Knight wanted done and how he wanted it done. He's one of the greatest basketball quarterbacks that's ever played the game. There was no way that we were going to lose under his leadership.
I became very determined in the second half because I knew this is my last half of basketball. And I knew Michigan was leery of us because we'd beaten them twice. So if you drill them early and then you just keep pouring it on a little bit more, and then finally the weight of it just made me too difficult for them to handle.
Buckner, of course, was right. Michigan couldn't handle the pressure. And with 57 second-half points, Indiana went on to an 86-68 rout.
For that second 20 minutes in 76, we played as well as we could play.
They're going to wind up with 32 wins in a row. 1 second. The basket is good. And Indiana is the national champion.
That's the kind of ball club we'd been watching all year long, and it just became a fitting climax for a great season.
I had tears in my eyes, rolling down my cheeks just because I was so happy for those kids that they'd realized the ultimate goal.
Everybody that took a shot at us came up empty. Just plain and simple. They came up empty. They're still trying to beat us.
The 76 Hoosiers had accomplished what they had set out to do. They were undefeated national champions, one of the greatest teams in NCAA history.
And they were number one the whole year, from the first day to the last. And they had doubters all the time because people would look at them and say, well, they don't shoot particularly well. They don't do this, they don't do that. Well, they also didn't lose.
In many ways, it was Bobby Knight's finest creation, a team without superstars, the whole greater than the sum of its parts.
What we had was a team ego, but everybody understood their role, and in their roles, we all had egos. That we could do our role or participate with our team concept better than anybody else could in theirs.
It was great to go through something with Coach Knight and the coaches and players who were like brothers. All the guys sacrificed themselves to accomplish this goal.
I thought that, well, yeah, we've done it. We'll go on our way, and people will forget about us. They don't forget the 76 team, the 32-0, and the championship.
When the kids that have been with you that long and have worked that hard have that kind of achievement behind them, you feel really good, I think, for that which will stay with them forever.
Players, however, don't stay forever, and the Hoosiers naturally slipped a bit after the heroes of 76 graduated. In the late 70s, Indiana made the tournament twice, but wouldn't again challenge for the national championship until 1981.
We were a very good basketball team, far much more better than our record indicated.
That year, the Isaiah Thomas-led Hoosiers lost 9 times. But in the NCAA tournament, Indiana won its first 4 games by an average of 25 points, including a Final Four win over LSU to reach a championship game that was overshadowed by disturbing news.
This is serious, the president's been shot. And after that, everybody kind of got solemn. At that time, we didn't know if they were going to cancel the game or play it.
Our hearts and prayers and those of a nation are with the President in Washington, D.C. But for the next 2 hours, our professional efforts will be directed here in Philadelphia and the national championship game that follows.
They said that the President was all right. I felt a lot better. And they said that we was going to go ahead and play the game. And I was just concentrating, meditating what I had to do individually and collectively as a team and get down to the spectrum. Man, I was just fired up, man, ready to win a national championship.
But so too was North Carolina, Indiana's opponent that night.
Jimmy Black, get it, Perkins does. 7-2, Carolina.
Thomas was horrible, shooting 1 of 7 from the floor, as the Tar Heels' suffocating defense took its toll. Indiana fell behind early, and worse yet, didn't seem to be into the game.
My God, he's unbelievable. Hey, Isaiah really didn't bust to try to catch him that time, and Bobby is hot. And it's all Carolina at the moment. Nice move. L1 scores, and Carolina leads by 8. Carolina 16, Indiana 8.
We were behind 16-8, and I really felt like, we could really get blown out. Now, this is a national championship game. That's not going to happen.
One reason it didn't happen was the shooting of Randy Whitman, who found his stroke just when Indiana needed it most.
He got hot, and it wasn't hard to figure out that, hey, as long as he's hitting, we're going to go to him.
You are, Whitman. There you are. He's an unbelievable shooter. Whitman ties it up for the Hoosiers.
I was able to find a couple openings and knock down 3 shots there to get us back into the game.
3 in a row for Randy Whitman, and it's tied again at 22. Nobody in this world can let Randy Whitman shoot. Whitman at the buzzer. Indiana leads 27-26.
And that was the real shot in the arm that we needed. It really gave us a positive going into the locker room.
Hey, we haven't played very good. We've got a lead. Let's go out and jump on them right away here.
Let's just do one thing this half. Let's play 20 minutes of
basketball our way. Let's go, fellas.
I myself wanted to get extremely aggressive and take charge of the game and make sure that we went out with the style of play that we had been playing for the last 2 months.
As bad as he was in the first half, that's how good Isaiah was in the second. Thomas completely turned his game, finishing with 23 points and 5 assists.
Isaiah was tremendous in the second half. He came out with a winning attitude, and I think there was no way that North Carolina was going to deny the national championship from him or the team.
And a steal, Isaiah Thomas against Black.
Isaiah was just like a demon, man, a demon possessed by the basketball guy. And Jimmy Black just bobbled the ball. You do not bobble the ball around Isaiah, because if you just bobble it a little bit, he's going to come up with it.
There's not very many players at that size that can take over a game the way he could.
Guard, Isaiah, dishing off to Turner. By three, there's Thomas again. Elwood can't stop him.
Isaiah Thomas, pound for pound, inch for inch, is about as tough-minded in competitive circumstances as anybody I've ever seen.
The little child shall lead you is the cry of Indiana fans and how they love Isaiah. Into the promised land.
He just took it upon himself and got his team going, but he was the guy that probably hurt us the most. Isaiah was remarkably good. I mean, he was the guy. He took control down the stretch.
Indiana with the ball and a 9-point advantage. Thomas inside. Yes, sir. There's Isaiah.
It's like you had the guy in the palm of your hand. You can take him, your defender, and do with him whatever you want. It was an awesome feeling.
Isaiah Thomas obviously was the hub of our wheel and played that way in the second half, where we pretty much controlled the game through the last 10 minutes.
Inside is Thomas. All alone. Indiana can do little wrong.
The final score, Indiana 63, North Carolina 50. The Hoosiers' second national championship in 5 years.
We were number one, and I tell you, that's the best feeling. We are champions, and I'm very proud of my accomplishments.
I think we could have played that tournament forever with that team, and nobody would have beaten them.
With 2 national championships in less than a decade, Indiana owed much of its success to the coaching of Bobby Knight.
He's the master psychologist.
Who's the best at what he does?
His best quality as a coach is to understand each player and what motivates that player.
You know, sometimes he's hard on you, but then there's always a pat on the back. That's one thing the public really doesn't get to see of Coach Knight. He is a very caring person.
He's 2 different people. I mean, off the court, he's just a nice guy. You know, he'll do anything for you. But when it comes to basketball, look out. Because he takes you to that edge to where, you know, you don't think you can go that far anymore. He's just going to push you over that edge. He wants you to keep going just to be the best player that you can possibly be.
Come on, David. There's no sense in that foul. Come on.
I think the greatest compliment for a coach is to have a kid that played for him come up to him at some point and say, "Coach, you were the best teacher I ever had."
If I had it to do all over, to go back to college, to play college basketball, I would go back to Indiana and play for Coach Knight.
Playing for Coach Knight, has taught me so much about life, not so much about basketball, about how to be a survivor in life. It was one of the greatest parts of my life.
He showed us what it's like to believe in one another and trust one another and be supportive of one another without regard to our shortcomings or whatever. And that is a lesson of life that you can keep forever.
This was an ideal place for me to have coached, that it was a great situation for me, that the people were very receptive, accepted me in my approach to basketball and what I thought college athletics were to be and should be. Given an opportunity to choose any place where I might coach basketball, nothing could have been better suited to me than Indiana has been.
It is the dream of every kid who ever grew up in the state of Indiana to one day play for the Hoosiers. Rarely, however, has a hometown hero played as big a role in an NCAA championship as Steve Alford.
I grew up for 4 years of my life just 15 minutes away from the campus. Always been big Bob Knight fans and big Indiana basketball fans. It was just a fulfillment of a dream that I'd had for a long time.
Steve Alford experienced both the highs and lows of NCAA tournament life, starting with an upset of North Carolina in 1984. 2 years later, the favored Hoosiers lost to Cleveland State in the first round. But in '87, things were different.
Advantage right now, Brent. Now Auburn goes to a 1-3-1 zone.
After a first-round tournament romp, 2 come-from-behind wins followed. And then in another frantic come-from-behind effort against LSU, the Hoosiers went down to the wire, down by a single point.
Thomas got Vargas in the air and was short, but Indiana wins it. The Hoosiers go to the Final Four.
At the Final Four, Indiana beat top-ranked UNLV at its own game. Rather than slow it down, the Hoosiers attacked. And with Alford taking advantage of the newly implemented three-point line, Indiana was surprisingly able to outrun and outgun the running Rebels, 97-93, to reach the finals for the 5th time in school history.
That's it. Indiana's going to go to the finals.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Louisiana Superdome for this evening's national championship game between the Syracuse University Orangemen and the Indiana University Hoosiers.
We weren't happy to just be in there. Our goal was never to reach the Final Four. Our goal was always to win the national championship. And we knew team for team and talent for talent and coach for coach, we had the ability to win it.
The championship game was a struggle for us. I felt that we were a step to a half a step behind throughout the course of the entire game.
Coleman is out, and now Douglas on the move. 3-on-2, and Trish.
And it really looked to me like we had absolute control of the game.
Douglas penetrates inside play.
We got off to a pretty slow start, and the game was going somewhat back and forth, and Steve, having a good start, kept us in the ball game.
Alford's alone. Alford's 3.
The three-point line really was a layup to him.
At the buzzer, the 3. And Indiana takes the halftime lead.
My teammates worked very hard at getting me open, and fortunately I was able to knock 7 of them down.
Three-pointers Steve Alford has hit here tonight.
We really didn't control him very well, so we kind of adjusted, but that did open it up a little bit for Keith Smart.
We fed off of Steve and Darryl during the course of the first half. Until now, the defense has changed a little bit, and everything seemed to open up for me.
Here's Smart again, who's sliding inside, creating a basket.
I think there was a stretch there in the final game where he did carry. It seemed like he got all the rebounds.
A strong rebound by Smart.
He handled the ball the majority of the time.
Now Smart penetrates, a nice pass underneath to Thomas.
And he shot the majority of the time.
Off the cut, it's Smart again.
I mean, he really took over the game in the last 5 minutes.
Smart comes back at the other end with a driving layup. He has taken over here in the second half.
We had to make several big plays just to stay in the ball game.
Of course, it was Keith Smart who made those plays.
Dribbles it out. Smart comes up inside of Monroe, hits the 2.
Then, with time winding down, Smart would make another.
A smart play by Smart.
I was in a fog. I completely was just in a fog. It's like everything is in slow motion.
He's short. Indiana could win it.
I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear all the fans screaming and yelling. I don't even remember seeing the floor, the players, or any of that. From the time going up to take the shot, everything was complete silence. All I remember was the ball going into the basket.
Smart takes the shot, and the Hoosiers with 3 seconds go ahead.
And I can remember hearing this big explosion of noise, and that's when I seemed to have woken up from this dream.
Indiana wins the championship. Keith Smart is the hero.
It is every kid's dream to be on a basketball court, the winding moments, to hit a shot to win a national championship. And it was a dream come true for me. I remember watching Michael Jordan and watching him make that shot and saying, one day, I'm going to make a basket to win a national championship. Never ever thinking that that would eventually happen, or even I could just dream about it and happen. And my dream did come true.
Smart's shot had kept the Hoosiers' record intact. 5 finals, 5 national championships, each special in their own way.
Winning the national championship to me and to our teammates, I'm sure, stays with you all of your life. We're all thankful that we all had the opportunity to represent Indiana University. It's been 40 years, but the events of that year, 1953, will remain proud moments for all of our lives.
Winning the national championship was a dream come true. It was something that we had worked over the course of 4 years to accomplish. There's not that many teams who can say that, yeah, you know, we played college ball and we went undefeated.
You're on the greatest high. It is an indescribable, natural high, which just tells you, you know, for this day, you're on the best team in college basketball, and it's what I'd been shooting for from the day I stepped on campus at Indiana University.
I had put this tremendous burden of pressure on myself to win. I didn't want to be a guy who went through college and had a great college career and never won a championship. And to be one of those guys is a tremendous honor, because there are thousands upon thousands who have come through the college ranks and have failed and not achieved that goal.
Oh, it was a big dream, and really the sole dream I had at the time of winning a national championship. At age 5, dreaming of playing at Indiana and winning a Big Ten championship and winning a national championship. Being able to, now I'm up on the ladder cutting the net, reflect back to those young years and say, you know, with a lot of hard work, dreams can come true.
Tradition and excellence. In the history of the NCAA championships, there has never been another school with a combination of the two, like the University of Indiana.
The choice for me to go to a college was a natural one, and one that didn't require a lot of thought. I wanted to go because of that tradition at Indiana.
Indiana basketball, Hoosier hysteria is what it's all about, and Indiana University fit that bill. I mean, the tradition was already in place, and I wanted to be a part of it.
Indiana basketball has a very close-knit family, and we understand what it's like to play at Indiana and what kind of rewards you can get from playing at Indiana. There's just a huge tradition.
There's a lot of tradition, a lot of dreams that go with it, and a lot of players grow up as little kids shooting basketball in the backyard or on the farm, and always have that dream wanting to play Indiana University basketball.
I want them all to think that while they're no longer playing here, they are still just as much a part of the team as they ever were.
I think to a man, all of these people you talk to after they've left the university have only left it physically, emotionally, and spiritually will always be a part of Indiana University, and I think that's the way it should be.